Hello, welcome to Ohio's CCIM4C on-demand learning event titled Sustaining Initiatives with Vision, Value, and Strategy. This learning event is presented by Ohio's CCIM4C Training, Technical Assistance, and Evaluation Team, which consists of individuals from the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, as well as Ohio University's Voinovich School. My name is David Collins, and I'll be facilitating today's learning event. The objectives for today's learning event are for Ohio's CCIM4C project directors to be able to first gain a conceptual understanding of the public value model for strategic management in the context of the work being done by projects engaged in Ohio's CCIM4C, and two, to apply the public value model to the concept of sustainability planning. To begin, it's important for us to understand the term public value. Perhaps the easiest place to start is by examining how value is created in the private sector. Here, corporations often determine value as revenue for shareholders. There's typically a clear connection between profit margin and private value. In the public sector, our role is not necessarily to generate revenue, but we certainly are expected to add value to our local communities, however that's defined, municipality, city, or county, in some cases our state, Ohio, and for others our county, federal. As we begin, it may help if you take a minute or two to jot down on paper the answer to this question. How does the work that I'm doing that is funded by Ohio's CCIM4C initiative add value to my community and or the state? Is your team providing training and technical assistance related to the Strategic Prevention Framework, or SPIF? Is your team filling prevention service gaps by implementing evidence-based programs, policies, or practices? Is it building capacity in your community to see the importance of the need for prevention as an important part of addressing substance abuse or promoting mental health? Attacking a BHAG or wicked problem to further reduce the consequences of the opioid epidemic? All of these things are creating public value. All of your coalitions received an investment in a culture of health, broadly defined. This investment was publicly funded. Funding originated as part of the federal 21st Century Cures Act funding that was granted to the state of Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. The Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, which administers Ohio's CCIM4C funding, distributed those dollars locally to your coalition specifically through a competitive grant process. So ultimately the question becomes, what is the public value that your local project creates with the public dollars that are invested in it? What is key to understand is that we, and I say that to include both you as local coalition and us as training and technical assistance team, are spending public funds on Ohio's CCIM4C initiative. These are funds that ultimately belong to all of us, everyone watching this video, our family members, friends, and neighbors. This is a big opportunity and also a big responsibility. So framing our work in terms of public value helps us understand that we should be, really must be, creating public value with those dollars. Sometimes we think of public leaders as being those who hold political office, such as governor, county commissioners, or other elected officials. Sometimes we think of public leaders as those who are administrating public offices, such as school superintendents or executive directors of our county alcohol, drug addiction, and mental health services boards. However, by virtue of leading a coalition with public dollars, you are considered a public leader. Please take a minute and review these challenges that are documented in the literature. I'm sure that a few of these resonate with you. Measuring outcomes. With public funds comes responsibility, and that is our accountability. Second, awareness. Oftentimes we have to raise awareness associated with our work. Oftentimes we answer questions like, Why is the CCIM4C initiative important to our community? Why do we need to address the issue of opioids and access to MAT? Why is it important to select and implement strategies that are grounded in evidence? Competition for scarce resources. While your community was given an opportunity with these funds, I imagine there is a long list of other things that you would like to do that you don't have funds for, and that your community is competing with others in your area and perhaps beyond for funding of those activities. Staffing considerations. It's imperative that we don't ignore the importance of human capital. Our most precious resource is the people we have working with us. Demands from overseers. If you're watching this webinar, your community is required to do a sustainability plan. This is just one of the many demands that your community has experienced throughout Ohio's CCIM4C initiative. In addition to this specific grant, I can imagine that you have had many other demands from your overseers, those who give you the authority to do the good work that you do. Partnerships are often a key resource. It is likely that your community has collaborated with others during the course of this project, especially since Ohio Moss encouraged it and the ecosystem activity labels partners. Finally, by virtue of the collective impact framework being a process grounded in the local environment, we know that communities are complex networks, and of course, these networks must be nourished and managed. So, why is this idea of public value so important, and how can we use it as we think about sustainability? A good place to start is by learning about Dr. Mark Moore's public value model, sometimes called the strategic triangle. The public value approach grew from what has become known as the Kennedy Project. Dr. Mark Moore from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government described this as a quest to develop a theory to use in the teaching of executives in public sector leadership and management, one which would be built from the ground up and which would draw on their experiences. At the core of the project, the aim was to build a strategic management framework for public sector managers. Essentially, Dr. Moore invited practitioners to become part of the faculty at the Kennedy School. Harvard had young faculty members who went to serve in government, and the faculty met large numbers of public sector executives through Harvard's executive program classrooms. As head of the executive program, Dr. Moore spent a long time listening to those actually working in the public sector and wrote up what he had learned in a book called Creating Public Value. The essence of Dr. Moore's framework is this: if we believe that the task of a public sector manager is to create public value, then the central symbol of the approach to leading and managing in the public sector is the strategic triangle. This triangle posits that any strategy carried out by a public sector organization must meet three broad tests. The strategy must first be aimed at creating something substantively valuable, i.e., constitute public value. Two, be legitimate and politically sustainable, i.e., attract sufficient ongoing support and concomitant resources from the authorizing environment, that is, from political and other stakeholders taken as a whole, with due recognition to their differential power. And three, be operationally and administratively feasible, i.e., doable with the available organizational and external capabilities needed to produce it. Let's break down the components of the triangle over the next few slides. First, let's continue our exploration of public value. This, in essence, is what your project does and why it's important to your community. How does this particular project increase the value that your organization creates? This project is not in isolation, hopefully. I am guessing that you sought this funding opportunity as a way to increase the value that your organization delivers to the public. You had an operating strategy when you applied for the funding. We have to be aimed at creating something that is substantively valuable. Valuable to whom? To overseers, clients, and beneficiaries, not necessarily in that order. Next, we must look at the authorizing environment, those who grant us the authority to do the good work that we are doing in our community. Any successful project or initiative must attract sufficient support and resources from its authorizing environment. How many times have we heard, "We are doing this while it was funded and then it went away. We had this staff person and then we lost the funding and she or he went away. Did your organization or coalition let those ideas, people, etc., go away because they weren't valuable? Or was there something in the environment that didn't make that strategy feasible?" There are all kinds of people, organizations, etc., who grant us the authority to do good work in our communities. We have to think about them when we make strategy. Our coalitions do not operate in a vacuum. Finally, we have to consider operational capacity. Our strategies must be operationally and administratively feasible. They have to be doable. We produce value three ways: make it ourselves through internal capacity, buy it or contract for it through external assets, or barter for it using partnerships, coalitions, etc. This is called co-production. We can co-produce value with other partners in our communities. This is often a strategy for creating value. Put together, the strategic triangle public value model is a representation of strategy development and implementation in the public sector. It's a useful framework for working in complex realities. Crafting and implementing a strategy requires the manager to seek to maximize the degree of alignment among these three elements. Each of them, public value, authorizing environment, and operational capacity, is strategically important. Of course, they are rarely in alignment in their natural state, and managers strive constantly to fashion workable trade offs among them. As a manager, we need to be mindful of our practices to juggle or balance the triangle in our day to day operations. Because the corners of these are circles, and I'm a visual person, I imagine these circles growing or shrinking depending on how much time and effort that I need to put into thinking strategically about each of them. We hope that you will be able to use the strategic triangle public value model more broadly, but for the CCIM4C initiative, we will use it in a very focused way as we plan for sustainability. To use the sustainability module more effectively, we believe it's important to share a few points about why we chose to link the strategic triangle public value model and sustainability. For the CCIM4C, we are asking coalitions to create a sustainability plan. That's why you're engaging in this learning opportunity today. What we hope is that the public value model will help you develop that strategy in a way that mirrors the environment for which you work. The sustainability module is set up to address all three strategic components: public value strategy, political or authorizing environment strategy, and operational capacity strategy. But the beauty of this is that making strategy is not limited to the sustainability plan that you are required to do for Ohio Moss. We hope that this training is also an investment, because we are being paid with the same public dollars to do our work, in you and your community as you make strategy in other areas of your agency or organization. We believe that the strategic triangle or public value model is an effective and efficient way to think about sustainability. Essentially, sustaining an initiative is a public value strategy in and of itself. Through his model, Dr. Moore encourages us to seek, to identify, and to press for the most valuable purposes of our work, drawing on a value seeking imagination. He believes that it is us, those who are managing the work and are closest to the work, that are both obliged and uniquely able to lead and plan based on the triangle. He believes that our leadership uniquely positions us to create and sustain value because we have knowledge and expertise about each of the three factors in the triangle: the authorizing environment, operational capacity, and public value that we hope to create. Through the sustainability module, you will examine the value of your CCIM4C initiative in terms of the task environment, outputs and outcomes associated with the value you are creating, authorizing environment, stakeholders, and community at large, as the community is quite often your largest stakeholder, and operational capacity, assets, make or buy, and then operational improvement. We will conclude our learning opportunity with a quote from John Cotter. Cotter is a leadership and change guru who is also from Harvard. Leadership is key to sustainability. As you choose your sustainability team, be sure to invite those to the table who are committed to establishing the future and for setting the strategy to get there. The sustainability module is more than a project requirement to check off the to-do list. We believe it can be a guiding document for your coalition as it prepares for life without current funding. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the many people who have contributed to the development of this sustainability module. We have been using it in Ohio's communities for close to 10 years now across multiple projects, and it really has taken a village of practitioners, administrators, and researchers to get this module where it is today. And thank you for engaging in Ohio's collective impact model for change initiative. The work you are doing is hard, important work. On behalf of Ohio's Training, Technical Assistance, and Evaluation Team and Ohio MOS, we look forward to working with you as your coalition completes the sustainability module.